Now this year is a real year. This year is one of those years where, yes, you have a new coaching staff in Eberflus who's coming in to take over, but at the same time, you have to be able to hit the ground running. So you're expecting him to play a certain way this year. You know, maybe you show some growth and you get him close to division, fighting, you know, losing game by field goal or whatever the case may be. Maybe there's 7 games in the win column. That's okay. By the time you get to year 3, now you need to really start to hit your stride, because there's a growing period between the end of year 2 and the start of year 3. That's really your year 2, if that makes sense to you guys. Now when you get to year 3, we need to be competing for the division in year 3 of your contract, which means that in 2023, the Chicago Bears should be fighting for the division. Now at the end of year 3, that period between 3 and 4, you need to be knocking on Pro Bowl type status, sort of kind of like a Josh Allen approach that went on in Buffalo, where all of a sudden you saw small little growth and then a giant leap. And that's what I'm looking for in terms of Justin Fields.
You know, Max, every time I hear Justin Fields, and I agree with Key, I think there needs to be grace considering where he was drafted and the situation he was drafted to, right? Think about where that O-line was last year as he was in the battle with Andy Dalton to see who the quarterback for this team was going to be, right? To a team with a head coach and a GM on their way out, contracts expiring, them feeling like they're making haste decisions, right? Like Matt Nagy, I don't know how many times on this show last year we talked about Matt Nagy and how that left a bad taste in my mouth with how he handled post pressers and things of that sort. So contracts on your best wide receiver, 3/5 of your offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. So I think as long as you see improvement with him understanding what the playbook is, him commanding the offense and making the right plays, there's still going to be challenges, 1,000%. He's still a young quarterback. But as long as you see improvement, that's all you care about.
The one thing that's perfect about him, Max, is that he's going to grow because that's who he is. He's the type of player that no matter what the situation is, we saw it leaving the University of Georgia and going to Ohio State. When things get in the way and there's obstacles that he has to get around, somehow he navigates through that. When he wasn't the starting quarterback at the start of the season, he didn't go into the tank, he didn't pout, he just waited his turn, and eventually his turn came, and we saw some flashes last year that made you go, okay, this is what we expect. So I expect for him, once they retool and shuffle maybe the offensive line around a little bit, get him some skill position players. Losing Allen Robinson was not that big of a deal as far as I'm concerned. They can always replace that. He gets to grow with one young receiver or 2 young receivers, and that'll help him out tremendously.
You know, what you just said, Key, I had something else to say, but that put something in my mind. I recently saw part of I think it was a podcast that Teddy Atlas, the boxing trainer who works at ESPN broadcaster, he was doing an interview with Jake Paul, right? And Jake Paul, you know, YouTube star turned boxer, and Teddy made a very interesting point, which was he noticed Jake Paul, as soon as he got into the YouTube stuff, he became successful, like very successful. And then when he approached boxing, like he took it seriously. Whatever you think of him, he respects it, takes it seriously, and he's succeeding in his way, right? And in other words, what you just said about Justin Fields, it reminded me of that. If you see the kind of person who's going to figure it out, there's an obstacle, that's okay. I'm going to figure out a way around it, over it, through it. I'm going to get to the other side to succeed. That may be the key for especially a guy like Justin Fields, because what you said about Josh Allen is exactly how I see Justin Fields. Josh Allen had a big arm, could run, but was a little raw. Athletic as hell, but raw. And he wound up in the perfect situation. So the one thing he had to have in him was the type of dude who's just going to figure it out and succeed. The other thing he needed was the environment that made it possible, right? And so every year he got twice as good as the year before. Now he's a superstar. It is unclear whether Justin Fields can do that, but it makes him one of the most intriguing players in football, because if the Bears have put him in the right situation now, what doesn't he have? Size. He has a big arm. He can throw it accurately. He can run. He's athletic. Like, he can do it all, right? And he had success on the college level in a big way. It's so interesting to me what's going to happen here, because this year, Key, is going to tell you a lot, right?
No, it is.
Even if it's not his fault, Key, if they have put him in a bad situation again this year, and now they've burned year 2 of his career, now he's up against it in year 3.
You know,
but if
I
he
don't
can
know
make progress, it's different.
I don't know that he'll be put in a bad situation. I think he's in a much better situation than he was with Matt Nagy. And this is not taking a shot at Matt Nagy, but you got a new in Matt Eberflus, if I'm saying his name correctly, is coming in here and understanding that this team and this offense is about Justin Fields and putting Justin Fields in the best possible situation to succeed. It's all about the surroundings and the situation in which Justin Fields was in last year, in which he's going to be in this year. These young quarterbacks in the National Football League, whether it's Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, any of these young guys, you've got to be put in the right situation to succeed. If you're not put in the right situation to succeed, you're probably going to fail. We watch Mitch Trubisky not necessarily fail in Chicago. People would think in Chicago he failed. I don't think he failed. I think he was in the wrong situation. That's why he gets a second bite at the apple in Pittsburgh, because people in the National Football League certainly recognize that.
Max, the only thing I would say to add to your point and what Key just said is that, like when you first get your driver's license, for a while you're driving with your parents. It's kind of awkward. You try to be relaxed. I equate that to him driving with Andy Dalton, right? It's like, hey, we're both drivers. Like your dad and mom are kind of driving for you, telling you everything to do. It doesn't feel like it's yours. Like there has to be a certain element of grace that when you get your license and then you're in your car by yourself for the first time, you're driving the car, you're in control. And it feels like this is the first time that we're seeing Justin Fields drive the car, right? So there comes an element of learning while you're by yourself, driving the car, being that leader. And there are going to be some bumps. But realistically, I don't expect the Bears to compete with the Packers and the Vikings.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.